So with that being said, from Dogs HQ, reporting live from hopefully the safety of an inside of the house, not in the road, we've got Palmer Thoms joining us.
Just getting back from vacation, drove all the way from Florida back to Athens. Any speeding ticket on the way home?
No speeding tickets.
Okay.
It was nice to get away to soak up the last little bit of summer, and feels fitting to be getting back from Florida to cover Georgia football, to talk Georgia football on a Florida podcast. So
where in Florida were you?
St. Augustine. Was playing a little bit of
golf.
Oh,
nice.
Beautiful.
Got married.
That's where I got married. I was just there at the first of this month, celebrating our 1 year. Beautiful St. Augustine.
And I think I introduced you as Parker. I meant to say Palmer if I didn't say it.
I've heard a lot worse.
Palmer.
Don't read the chat. You'll see worse.
Yeah.
Dogs HQ. We're obviously talking about the Florida-Georgia game. I know you guys call it something different on this show. It's the Florida-Georgia game. It's alphabetical order. It makes sense, right? What can we expect out of Georgia this year? Obviously, return Carson Beck. Unbelievably talented roster, a lot of 5-stars, recruit really well, recruit the transfer portal well. Give us an idea of what we should expect out of Georgia this season.
Billable hours is what to expect.
Yeah, there's certainly been a lot of off-field headlines recently, and was nice to be on PTO this past Friday when the most recent one went down. I think this is a Georgia team that has as much offensive firepower as they've had in any year under Kirby Smart. Obviously, there's no Brock Bowers, and that's going to be very difficult to replace. But the key is bringing Carson Beck back and just having a second year in the offensive system under Mike Bobo. A second year for him at Georgia as well. Just that comfort, I think, is going to take this offense to a new level. We saw that with Stetson Bennett in his second season as the starter. The difference between that 2021 and 2022 season was pretty, huge. In the comfort level that came with that second off season. I'm very curious to see what that looks like for Carson. And I would say that Bowers obviously was such a huge weapon for Stetson and that 2022 team. But as a whole, I think Georgia's weapons are better in 2024 than they were in 2022. And I think that when you surround a veteran quarterback like Carson Beck with those weapons, it creates a really interesting offense to watch.
I said this would be quick. We really don't have to talk about it. Obviously, stacked roster. Trevor Etienne transferred, ran scared of Montreal Johnson to go to Georgia this offseason.
That's facts.
What's the expectation in the running back room? Obviously, there's a lot of talent. Roderick Robinson, Branson Robinson. There's a lot of Chauncey Bowens, who was a Florida commit at one point. What does that room look like? How do you think that carries are going to be split up?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Trevor is going to be the unquestioned number one for Georgia, and I think that probably played a big part in his decision to leave Florida. Looking at his stats, from the past 2 seasons, you kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt and understand, hey, he was sharing carries. Yeah. If you assume that he's going to 1.5 times what he did at Florida. He could be in for a really special season. Was included as a watch list, person on the Maxwell Award today. And that says the kind of caliber of player that he is. Florida fans know that. Georgia fans are excited about that. I think that he gives Georgia something that the running back room probably hasn't had since DeAndre Swift was in town. A really, truly dynamic, versatile player that can do a little bit of both. You look at the rest of the room. Roderick Robinson is a bigger, more bruising back. Branson is in that same build, although he's coming off of a torn patella tendon, a ruptured patella tendon. So he's working his way back from that injury that happened this time last year. Don't think that he will be 100% when the season gets going. I would not be surprised if we're not seeing him at all before that Florida game, before that second bye week. So, I think that this Georgia running back room, what you've got with those two. Beyond that, you've got 3 true freshmen. Nate Frazier was the number 2 running back in the country coming out of high school, was at Mater Dei in California. I think he can do a little bit of what Etienne is going to do. And so to see maybe a two-headed monster approach there with a Roderick Robinson that adds that bruising mentality as well, certainly is going to be interesting. I think that, but to answer your question about where does Trevor fit into Georgia's offense, he's going to be a big part, and he's going to be a featured part of this running back room.
Hey, Palmer, real quick. I think Etienne, or we all know on this side of the world that Etienne, the lack of snaps and him being on 1A, 1B type situation was, in my opinion, was mainly because of his pass blocking, on the lack thereof. He was just straight up terrible in pass blocking. Do you think that could become an issue? I know you guys have an awesome offensive line, but do you think that could become an issue with him pass blocking?
Yeah, it's certainly something that Kirby and this coaching staff value. I think that when you have a bigger running back like Montrell Johnson is, like Roderick Robinson is, you might see those guys get more carries and more reps because of that. I don't know that Georgia is going to be asking Etienne to pass block a ton. I think that, in those situations, like you said, they've got a really good offensive line with 4 guys returning, that have starting experience. They feel very comfortable with up to 6 or 7 different guys on that group, and the tight ends as well. That they want to utilize those tight ends as pass catchers, but I think that they feel very comfortable utilizing them as blockers as well. I think that's going to be the case with Etienne as well. I think that we're going to see him be involved in the passing game, less as a blocker and more as a receiver. That is absolutely something that Georgia values, and it's going to be interesting to see how he can continue to develop in that, now in his 3rd year at the collegiate level.
How much?
Dan, you're muted. Oh, Dan was going crazy with the mic, but he muted.
Yeah, no,
go ahead, Nick.
Yeah.
So how much is Florida going to win by? I think that's November 1st. And
I got about 10.
No, stop it. Stop it. Defensively.
Last time Corey and I watched a game together was, I guess the second to last time. The last time was the Marco Wilson shoe throw. But the last time we watched the game,
don't bring that up, man.
Florida-Georgia game where Florida's down early, 14-0. Anyway, go on, Nick. I'm just reminiscing.
And I was super calm, too. I said we had it. I kept telling Dan, we got this, man. Just vibe out. It's going to happen, man. And trash start going crazy. Palmer, they're saying you're wearing khakis in the comments, man.
Palmer, you and I dress similarly. Somebody said something about your lavender shirt. I'm like, I got a lavender
khaki
shirt.
Shorts to be exact, man.
Yeah.
No, but there was plenty of khaki shorts this weekend.
I know the vibes. Yeah.
Defensively, what does Georgia return? I know it's a deeply personal game to defensive coordinator Will Muschamp. What does Georgia return defensively?
And Will's actually not in that role anymore. He's stepped into an off-field role this offseason.
Thank God.
Oh, because his son. You're right.
Right. Yeah, his son Whit being up at Vanderbilt now. He will be involved with the program, but is in an off-field role. So it's Glenn Schumann. Certainly personal to Georgia's coaching staff, though. With as many UGA ties as they have, and we've seen how personal it is to Kirby.
But all of the coaches there couldn't beat Florida when they were on the roster too, when they were players. I think it's just, I mentioned that last year. I'm like, it's just deeply personal to Georgia's staff, and it's like just another game to Florida's coaching staff. Yeah, no, and could be part of the problem, maybe. I don't know. No, I think with Georgia's let's start with the recruiting classes.
I mean, we got a lot of
just
problems.
have
Palmer,
single numbers next to them for the last decade versus Florida having 3 different head coaches in the same time. Yeah. No, I think defensively, to answer your question there, Nick, just there's so much. You come to expect a certain standard from a Kirby Smart defense and a Glenn Schumann defense. Those guys have been together for such a long time, obviously coming from the Nick Saban tree. They have set a standard and an expectation that
regardless of how many guys are off to the NFL, you're going to see them continue to plug and play and, not a rebuild, reload type situation. They've got 3 DBs off to the NFL that were all taken in the first 3 rounds of the draft. They're going to have to replace those guys. And to me, that is, maybe one of the bigger things to watch in Georgia's fall camp is, kind of how do they go about replacing Kamari Lassiter, Javon Bullard, Tyke Smith, 3 guys that were huge parts of the defenses both this past year and in 2022. Bullard winning MVP of that national championship game against TCU, Kamari Lassiter being a starting corner both those years, and Tyke Smith being in that versatile star position. I think that when you look around Georgia's defense last year, you really felt the absence of Jalen Carter. And the fact that they had him as, him plus Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, Trayvon Walker in 2021, in 2022, it was Jalen Carter. To have that kind of a force up front, Georgia didn't have that last year. And I think that that's where, the defense maybe struggled a little bit against the run. We saw Auburn try to expose that with Peyton Thorne there. Teams, Georgia Tech was able to do it with Haynes King at times. Teams were able to take advantage of running the ball against Georgia, especially with the quarterback. I think that they're going to, they didn't add anything by way of the transfer portal, anything big in terms of the portal on the defensive line. And that's something that I would, keep an eye on. They managed to hold on to Kristen Miller, who flirted with the portal, flirted with, entering in the spring, and they managed to hold on to him. They did add Xavier McLeod from South Carolina, but he's a guy that, played in just a couple of games last season for the Gamecocks and was away from the program by the time October started. So I don't know how much of a factor he's going to end up being. But you've got the same guys back that were a big part of that group last year: Warren Brinson, Nazir Stackhouse, Mykel Williams. Now, the difference is Georgia is hoping that they're able to use Williams in more of a outside linebacker edge role than they are a true defensive lineman. Going to be interesting to see that they need guys to stay healthy up there up front. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins is somebody that had a impressive game against Florida, but wasn't able to stay healthy for the majority of the season. And so they need him to stay healthy so that they can play Mykel out there at that outside linebacker spot where he looked so comfortable against Florida State, had his best game of the season. You talk about inside linebacker, and that is the strength of this Georgia defense because they bring back so much. I know you guys were just talking to Nick, and he covers Kentucky with Jamon Dumas-Johnson transferring there, but that to me looked more like a situation of he was slowly but surely seeing his role change and was going to continue to see his role change in 2024 had he stayed because of the emergence of CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson, 2 of the top 10 linebackers in the class of 2023 that were true freshmen playing a big role. Smile Munden is back, and he's an incredible linebacker when healthy. Jalen Walker is a guy that, again, a guy that had a sack against Florida. Somebody that is versatile in his way, his abilities. They call him a hybrid linebacker. He's not inside, he's not outside, can do a little bit of both. Another year of him in that inside linebacker role, and continuing to utilize his skill set on the edge as well. That to me is the strength of the Georgia defense, but they do need help up front with the defensive line, and they are going to be looking for capable guys to come in and replace, 3 key pieces of the defense on the back
end. How do you feel about this? I mean, you guys open up with Clemson. Should be a good test out the gate. How does Georgia feel like walking into this season? I know Beck is coming back. They should feel very confident in that tight end position. You guys just got talent everywhere. I don't want to speak about it. Talent just everywhere.
Actually got a difficult SEC slate this year with at Alabama
and Texas.
And
that's the game I was about to ask about. Texas as well on the schedule in the SEC. I think they're one of the top favorites as well to win this thing. How do you guys feel going into the season? Where you rank Georgia at in the mix of everything? How do you think they finish as well?
Yeah, I think Georgia is as talented as any team out there in the country, and there's no denying that. I think that with that schedule, it would not shock me at all if they did not go undefeated. Where is that loss? Because when you put them up individually against each of these teams, they are as talented, if not more talented than everybody. But I think the accumulation of the entirety of that season is going to take a toll. It'll be interesting to watch with Texas. How do they handle the wear and tear that comes with being in the league for, an extended part, playing an SEC team every single week. There's not an Iowa State on the schedule. Kentucky is a really good team. They'll probably come in right around the same spot in those conferences. And I think Kentucky, just for example, with playing against Texas, I think Kentucky is a team that would give Texas more of a challenge and a wear and tear and the eventual effect of that. I think you're going to see that with Texas. So interested to see where Georgia matches up with Texas. I think that Georgia will beat Alabama this year in the regular season. That being a tough game at Bryant-Denny, but I think that there's, maybe the Bama boogeyman is gone with Nick Saban now in retirement. If I'm circling a game as the loss for Georgia, it to me is that Texas game. Just having played Alabama already, having played Clemson in the opener, they don't have a bye, in the week right before that Texas game. To me, I think that's where going on the road into that environment, that's where Georgia could slip up. That being said, I would not shock me if the Bulldogs got the better part of the Longhorns in a rematch in the SEC championship game.
I think that's where, everyone outside of the SEC is always like, SEC bias. Yes, the week-to-week matchups are hard. It's the cumulative pounding of the schedule where, listen, there is Vanderbilt. Every once in a while you catch a Vanderbilt on your schedule.
Tennessee.
But it's the cumulative difficultness of every single week having to go in. There's no Rutgers and there's no Maryland.
No Syracuse.
Shout out to the Big Ten, which has 47 teams now.
Georgia's gonna be good, right? We know that.
It's a tough week in Jacksonville.
No, it's not a tough week. Tough week for you. I expect to win, man. I'm gonna be honest with you, man.
Get your lies ready, Corey.
I expect to win, bro. Like Brock Bowers is out of here. Etienne can't block anybody on social media or in real life. I expect us to win this game, to be honest with you. Whoever your backup running backs, just tell them don't even fret about early season depth chart stuff. It's gonna come a situation where hot blitz come and then Beck's gonna catch a lot of heat and Etienne's gonna be holding his hands like this, and I expect him to start losing snaps. But it's a tough game. I think you guys have the better staff, better roster, all of that. We just got to turn the tide here eventually. Hopefully an NFL team come calling Kirby Smart, or we just start sending more Florida natives to work for Athens PD.
Yeah, I was going to say, Corey, between now and the game time, there's a lot of different times that these guys can turn the ignition on in their car.
Yeah,
brother, I saw somebody tweet about flying, and I was like, "Oh God, no,
no!" That's my airspace.
I did that as well.
If I'm Kirby, I'm calling a team meeting. Listen, guys,
I'm calling the FAA, shutting that.
We're having enough trouble on the ground. We're not going into the air whatsoever. No helicopters, no planes, no hovercrafts.
Yeah,
we're not getting on scooters. We are walking. We are a team of walkers from here on out.
What do we
jogging club?
Uber. We got Uber NIL deals for all of you.
Is there any expectation of what we know about Rara Thomas, who was arrested on Friday?
Yeah, right now he's indefinitely suspended, is what we've been told from team sources.
Back before Florida.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would say, that would surprise me, is what I would say. This is his second different, family issue
charges or allegations.
With charges. It would surprise me, is all I will say there. And that's not, any sort of information. But I would be surprised if Rara Thomas is suiting up at Georgia this season.
Excellent.
It was a tough look for the scheduled happy birthday tweet to come out.
Very tough look.
Then you have to delete it, and then Brent McMurphy just comes with
from
a
the top
360 windmill dunk. Like, does Kirby not wish that Rara Thomas has a happy birthday? I'm like, Brent, my goodness. Don't expect Brent McMurphy to be breaking any Georgia news this upcoming season.
As somebody that schedules all of his happy birthday tweets, it's kind of funny,
Fire tweet though.
That one, I did see that one, and my first thought was, oh no, oh gosh.
When can we expect Kirby to fix the problem of a reckless abandon of the law in Athens?
Listen, Dan. We all sat here and celebrated the urban years.
Yeah, I was in school. I said all Jermaine Cunningham did was throw a Jimmy John sub. Not worthy of an arrest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, nothing like losing, man.
Carlos Dunlap was just tired. He wasn't drinking and driving. He was just tired.
My cousin now lives in Athens, works for the FDA. I'm worried about her driving to work, knowing that these folks are on the road just with an absolute reckless abandon. So, Palmer, what can we get from you? When is Kirby going to fix this culture of just absolute ignorance of driving rules in beautiful Athens, Georgia?
Who knows? It is a beautiful town. No, who knows? I mean, honestly, I will say, like, the fact that it continues to happen is concerning. I don't know. There's got to be further. There's got to be something done, because it can't continue to happen, is what I will say. And I think that, hearing from Kirby at media days, speaking with him, he was a lot more open about the way that the program is handling this internally, and that there are suspensions that are happening, and that it's not necessarily his job to come out and put those out publicly, but, because we pay attention, everybody ends up knowing it eventually. He said that Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint was somebody that, was dealing with this kind of stuff last season, was suspended for the first game that he was very apparently not playing in. Everyone knew it was a suspension. It was not public before the time. It was very apparent why he was on the sidelines and not in the game. And so, I think that it really is an issue, and I think that it's something that they have shown that, they dismissed a player this offseason already. And again, like I said, with Rara, repeated situations, repeated occurrences of this is what gets you dismissed from the program. They can put up with stupidity and speeding and whatnot, and punish you accordingly and make you miss time. But if you continue to ignore the rules, that's when it'll burn you. And so, I would say that it really is a problem. There is no doubt about that. But I don't think it's going unnoticed and completely ignored, like a lot of fans like to think.
Yeah.
And Kirby said they are fining guys. So essentially Georgia's roster is funding its own NIL. I can just putting the money back into the ecosystem.
I was just gonna say, you just create more opportunities for you to spend that NIL money, right?
That's
not
500
bad.
IQ.
Yeah. I mean, that's the next level thing. I mean, you can't blame Kirby for not playing chess, 3D chess, while the rest of us are playing, I don't know, I'd say checkers, but Othello. Palmer, we appreciate you coming on the show today, man. Really appreciate it. I know you drove back from Florida, so rest and relax. Let everybody know where they can follow you.
Publicly picking Florida this early in the summer before the season started. Make sure that we put that in a graphic and get that up on social media as soon as possible.
Exactly. No, Palmer Thoms on Twitter, Dogs HQ. We like with Nick. If you're a part of the Gators Online family and the group over there, you can come check us out. I wouldn't say that there's as much love on the UGA message board for the Florida fans.
Feelings mutual, bro.
Kentucky one, but it is very much mutual.
Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you back in Jacksonville. We need to coordinate and start a movement to get a home and home.
Absolutely.
When the Jags blow up.
I have been to way too many places in the SEC, and when people ask like, "Oh, how many places have you been?" I've started to count, and I'm like, I've seen Georgia play Florida. But it's been impossible for me to get to Gainesville for a football game.
Yep.
And Mike White's basketball program has not made it worth traveling that far.
No. Either way, Mike was here or there.
Aren't they going to do home and homes when Jacksonville goes through their renovation?
Here's the thinking on this. And Palmer, you can leave if you have to run. Please. But Tampa would love to host that game. The city of Tampa.
Yeah,
Orlando.
Can you imagine
the city of Orlando? Would love to host that game.
Can you imagine going to Tampa for that game and then being forced back to the 904 to watch? I mean, you might have record low attendance the following year.
So the city of Jacksonville pays both teams more than $7 million. I think what both administrations would like to keep happening is a big fat check paid to them.
Absolutely.
And you're not going to get that big fat check if you are the Florida Gators and you're playing that game in Athens. So Tampa would love to host it. Orlando would. That sounds like a bidding war. Atlanta seems like a very easy Georgia stop.
I can tell you this: Georgia fans don't want to go to Atlanta again. They play in Atlanta enough between a neutral site opener that feels like it happens every other year. Georgia Tech every other year, like that.
The SEC championship every year.
Championship, Peach Bowls. Georgia fans have seen enough football games at Mercedes-Benz Stadium that they are perfectly fine not going there for a game against Florida.
The universities who are going to be helping to pay a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit out for name, image, and likeness, and 2 have to start paying players would like those checks. So I think what we're up against here, against the home and home, which I think most of the fan base would love, is Tampa, Orlando will get into a bidding war, and then whoever wants to pay more will go there. They'll see how many people. They'll see how many people come into their town for that game because it's a gigantic deal. And Atlanta will also see that. And then all of a sudden you go back to Jacksonville and you're like, shoot, yesterday's price is not today's price. And here's what we're going to do. Which is, I think, the biggest
price up for Jacksonville.
Which is why people in Jacksonville,
and they can't afford it.
Which is why the people I talk to in Jacksonville are like, no, it's definitely going to be home and home. And I'm like, that's what the Jags and the city administrators in Jacksonville want you to put out there. But I don't think it's clear cut home and home. I would love a home and home.
I would love a home and home. And it's 26, 27 that we're talking about.
Yeah, I
believe so. Yes.
Yeah. I would love to be in Gainesville one of those years.
Last time Florida was in Athens.
Gladwell had the wheel at that point, bro. You don't want to be here.
Last time Florida was in Athens, they hung 100 or hung a half 100 between
half
the hedges.
Between the hedges.
The old ball coach, the head ball coach would say.
That's right. All right, Palmer, we appreciate you coming on the show. Hopefully we can get you on the last week of October and talk a little bit about this game. Appreciate you coming on, and we will talk to you soon.
Sounds like a plan. See you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Good one.
I'm glad I got that out there.